Hello everyone, my dear students, anybody who are interested in programming, in particular in Python programming. We continue our quick lessons about Python, and step by step we're trying to cover all the Python features in simple terms, so this course may help you to start creating your own Python apps or web pages. So, last time we covered functions, and it's a very powerful tool because in a way you may think about function as a super statement. We have just a very limited set of statements in Python. They are rather generic, but function is a set of statements named and basically created for a certain task. So you may think about function as a super statement or custom made statement. The same way we when we were talking about data, about variables, there are only four, unfortunately, only four basic or primitive types in Python. There are integers, there are float numbers, Boolean strings. So of course life is so complex, and in order to somehow encode and express the variety of life, you need much more than just the variables. Besides, they are very small in terms of their capacity. Those variables of primitive types very small. So we have to combine the same way we combine statements into functions. We may need something bigger. I call it container or a box where you can put a lot of variables and they somehow share the same name, but at the same time you still can access them separately. Okay, let's take a look. So what you see here is a very simple demo. I created a list. So list by far is the most popular container in Python. By the way, other or older computer languages, they prefer another term. They call it array. But Python name is list. List is a set of variables. Any variable in a list has a number or index, but they all share the same name. So under the same name as under umbrella, you combine a lot of variables. So you see, I created a list, and it's not just one, it's three integer variables. Most of the time when you create lists, you keep it the same type. So you create a container of integers or floats or booleans or strings. However, it's possible to mix. Maybe it's not very often, it doesn't happen very often, but you can mix in one list of variables of different types. So I created a list. Any variable has a number. In a list, numbers start from 0, be careful. So first variable or first item number 0, number 1, and finally the third one is number 2. It's a very common beginner's mistake. They think if list is 3 variables, then the last item is under number 3. No, the last one is under number 2. Why? Because we start from 0. So in line 2 I print all 3 variables one by one in lines 2, 3, and 4. And finally in line 5 I apply very popular ubiquitous function. You need it all the time. It's called len. Len stands for length, and it gives us how many variables in that particular list. So in my case it would be 3. The result of len numbers would be 3. Let's save the changes. Let's run it. And yes, you see all the variables are printed in my container, in my list, and I see how many is 3. So list is a container, a list items or list variables or list elements. You may call it using different names. They all numbered and they share the same name. So you access them through those numbers, or sometimes we call them indexes. Okay, seems to be easy, but list may be huge. You may handle in your application thousands or even millions of items depending on what you process. So, in other words, if I need, so this technique, when you create list and initialize it with the explicit literals is good, but probably it's not very good if I have a list of, let's say, 10,000 students. So how would I do that if I need a big list? You may use asterisk. So in line number 1, I initialize list of 100 integers, and any item going to be initialized with the 0. So I create big list of integers and they all are zeros. By the way, that's the most common mistake I just mentioned. Do not try to access an item after last one. Let me show you, by the way, what happens if I do try to access item 100. You see, oh sorry, I gotta reopen it. So big list. So this is mistake. Let's make a comment. If I am trying to access an item 100, let's see what's going to happen. And you see out of range error message, list index out of range. So be careful, this is very, very common mistake. Okay, seems to be all right. Let's run it. So what I expect here is 3 times I print 0. all my elements, all my variables in a list are zeroed. I print the first element, the second, and I print the last element. And then I print how many lengths, which should be 100. And yes, that's exactly what I expected. Can I initialize array with something else? Why not? Let's initialize my big list with -1. You see it's working. Okay. The beauty of the list is it's very dynamic. So maybe that's why Python creators decided to change the name, because originally this type of container in many languages, C, C++, Java, JavaScript, they called arrays. But Python creators call it list. I think they meant it's very dynamic. You can manipulate list during your program execution, which is not true for other languages. For example, for C or C++, those containers very, let's say, rigid. It's hard to change them after they created, but list is very dynamic. And what you can do with the list, you can create, for example, an empty list, because I don't know yet at the beginning of my program the content, the capacity of my list. But later on you can use, for example, append. So this method or function adds to the end of the list new and new elements. So 10 times, line 2 and 3, 10 times I'm adding to my list new and new numbers. Then I print. You see, print can print not only variables, expressions, and literals. Print is very versatile. It can print also lists. And then dynamically in line 5, I remove number 5 from my list. Obviously, it may be a few the same items. Nothing prevents us from having in a list, let's say, a few elements with the same value 5. In this case, remove going to delete the first occurrence of number 5. Anyway, I create an empty list. I add dynamically during my program execution 10 integers. I print them. I remove one and I print it again. Let's run it. And yes, you see it's working exactly the way I expected. And you see when print library function is print and the list, automatically square brackets are added. There is another type of container in Python, and it's called tuple. It's very similar to list, but it's more efficient. Let me show you just an idea. So tuple created with parentheses. It's created with parentheses, but you access elements also using square brackets. The disadvantage of a tuple is it's unmutable. So whenever it's created, there is no way to change it. So it's not as dynamic as list. However, it's more efficient. So you may use sometimes tuple if you know you're not going to change it. But most of the time, I would say, of course, list is by far the most popular container. And the third type of container I wanted to take a look is dictionary. So dictionary is also a list, but we don't access elements by numbers. We access elements by names. So you may think about dictionary as a set of pairs, key value pairs. You see what I did? In line 1 and 2, I created a dictionary. It has 3 items, 3 elements. It's a populations of 3 countries. Canada, 38 millions. United Kingdom, 67. United States, 329. Probably, by the way, those numbers a little bit obsolete. I think I took them from last year. But anyway, you see the difference when I print the elements, lines 3, 4, and 5. I do not access dictionary elements by index. I access them by names. So I pull from populations, not item 0, item Canada. I'm pulling from populations dictionary an item UK. So sometimes dictionaries are more self-explanatory comparing to the lists, because names definitely can tell you much more than numbers. So in this demo program, I created dictionary, I initialized dictionary of 3 populations, I print them, and then I showed you how to do it dynamically. Sometimes you don't know in advance how many elements you're going to need, so I may use this technique. I may create an empty dictionary, and then I can dynamically, when my program is running, add to populations 2. Now the list is called populations 2, different elements with basically the same numbers. And I print it again. I print again the dictionary created dynamically, and I expect, of course, the same numbers to be printed. So let's take a look. Let's save it first. And here we are. You see 2 times I printed dictionary. First, it was created right away. Secondly, it was created step by step from an empty dictionary. But remember the rules. So when you create list, you use square brackets. When you create a tuple, you use parentheses, but when you create a dictionary, you use curly braces. I wanted to show you, by the way, a Python reference. So it's a very good website. I recommend everybody. W3 Schools. It has a lot of useful information about different modern languages. So you see, for example, how to manipulate list. You see functions you may use to manipulate list: insert, pop, clear, append, remove. We try just append and remove, but you see there are more than that. And by the way, why those functions are called method? Because methods are more advanced functions. We are going to cover them in very soon when we cover object-oriented programming. So technically speaking, list is an object. And if it's an object, it has method. So method is a function you apply to an object. But right now, it's not important. Just try to understand the idea behind containers. And just remember, if you apply len, you don't need dot. You just pass to the len function the name of your list. But if you're using any of those methods, they are used with the dot. So the name of the list, dot, then the name of the method. Thank you very much. Please support the channel by your views, your likes, your comments. I would really appreciate that. All the best and see you soon for our next lessons. Bye bye.